The chandeliers of the grand ballroom glimmered like clusters of golden suns, casting halos of light over waves of laughter, music, and the delicate chime of crystal glasses. Men in fine suits and women, wrapped in shimmering silk, glided through the room, their smiles polished, their conversations laced with pride and privilege. But at the very edge of that glittering sea stood a quiet figure. Elena. She clutched a silver tray in trembling hands, her crisp blue uniform and white apron spotless, her dark hair pinned neatly behind her ears. Though her presence was invisible to most, she carried herself with a quiet grace that spoke of dignity few could see. No one in that grand hall could have imagined that this very night, beneath the golden glow of chandeliers, Elena's life was about to change forever. The evening began as they all did, serving wine, carrying trays of hors d'oeuvres, offering polite nods and faint smiles. But wealth, as it often does, has a cruel sense of humor. Among the guests was a man of immense fortune and even greater arrogance. A millionaire known for finding amusement in the humiliation of others. Holding a folded note in one hand and surrounded by laughter, he raised his booming voice above the music. "Her," he sneered, pointing directly at Elena. "She doesn't belong in a place like this. But tell you what, sweetheart. If you can dance the tango right here, right now, I'll marry you on the spot." Laughter erupted across the ballroom, cruel and cutting. Elena froze, her heart racing, her cheeks burning as if the world itself were mocking her. For a fleeting moment, she wished the floor would open and swallow her whole. What the man didn't know, what no one knew, was that Elena carried a secret. Before tragedy stripped her world bare, before poverty forced her into servitude, she had once been known across small theaters as one of the most graceful tango dancers her city had ever seen. But life had other plans. Her father's illness, the crushing weight of debt, the slow collapse of dreams. Everything had forced her to trade satin shoes for scrub brushes, applause for silence, and bright stages for dim servants' quarters. Yet that night, the cruel challenge awoke something buried deep within her. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and stories where the unseen finally find their light, pause for a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to Stories of Kindness. Your support keeps stories like this alive. Elena's hands trembled. Laughter filled the ballroom. Every instinct told her to run. But somewhere deep inside, a voice whispered, "You have nothing left to lose." With a slow breath, she set the tray down on the nearest table. Her gaze fell, not in shame, but in focus. Every beat, every rhythm, every step of her old life began to return to her. Sensing the stillness, the pianist hesitated, then, with curiosity, struck a key. A haunting tango melody filled the hall. The crowd fell silent. They expected a spectacle, a clumsy attempt that would fuel their mockery. But when Elena stepped onto the floor, shoulders straight, chin lifted, something shifted. Her body began to move. Not awkwardly, but with breathtaking precision. Her feet slid and spun in perfect time, her arms flowing like silk, her eyes burning with remembered fire. The millionaire's smirk faded. His glass nearly slipped from his hand. The laughter that had once filled the air dissolved into awe. Elena danced not for them, but for herself. Each movement told a story, of heartbreak, of sacrifice, of a woman who had lost everything yet still carried fire within her soul. The rhythm of the tango became her confession. Every turn, every pause, every flick of her wrist was a whisper from the past, of pain, of courage, of defiance. As the final note echoed and her body stilled in a flawless pose, the silence that followed was deafening. For one suspended heartbeat, no one dared breathe. Then came the thunder, applause that shook the hall. But Elena did not smile. She bowed slightly, not for their approval, but for the memory of who she once was. The millionaire, face flushed with shame, tried to laugh it off, to pretend it was all in jest. But the room saw through him. He had mocked her, only to be undone by her grace. Elena simply lifted her tray, turned, and walked away. She had nothing to prove. That night, the whispers in the ballroom changed. They no longer spoke of wealth or status, but of the maid who silenced a room with her courage. In the days that followed, life began to shift. Those who had once ignored her now looked at her with quiet respect. A woman who once sneered at her left an envelope. Inside were tickets to a local dance studio. A man whispered that he knew someone searching for an instructor. It wasn't fortune. It wasn't fame. But it was something she hadn't felt in years. Opportunity. By day, she continued her duties as a maid. By night, she taught dance to children, mothers, and elderly couples who longed to feel alive again. Through her pain, Elena found her purpose. She became more than a dancer. She became a symbol of hope. The millionaire tried once to approach her. Perhaps out of guilt, perhaps out of admiration. But Elena simply bowed politely and continued walking. For she had learned the greatest truth of all: her worth was never defined by those who laughed at her, but by the fire she carried inside. And so, the maid who was once invisible became a light in her city. A reminder that no matter how far life pushes you down, your spark can never truly be extinguished. Sometimes, it only takes one cruel challenge to awaken the greatness sleeping within. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and comment below. Subscribe to Stories of Keenness so we can continue spreading hope, courage, and compassion across the world. Before we go, tell us in the comments. Do you believe hidden talents always find their way back to the light, no matter how deeply buried? Because sometimes, a single moment of courage changes everything.